You're listening to Inside Air, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations.
Hi, I'm Flight Lieutenant Chris Sully, and welcome to the latest RAF Inside Air podcast. In this episode, we're heading out into the Irish Sea off the coast of the Isle of Man for a joint Royal Air Force and Royal National Lifeboat Institution exercise.
And ironically, up to a certain point, the more wind is beneficial until it becomes too windy, and then that wind affects the sea state becomes too great, and then we have to go home. So it's a fine balance between the two.
So I am making sure the aircraft's performing correctly, that the engines are going well, that the fuel is okay for us to sort of do the rest of the sortie.
It's great aircraft trainer for the pilots. The crewmen in the back have to work slightly harder because it's a more confined area, but that means that they have to be a lot more efficient with the space that they've got to work.
As usual, we'll also reheat a few stories which might have slipped under your radar, and we'll be finding out who's under the hat this week with AS1 Ben Russell.
Best location you've served?
I went on RAF football tour to Bangkok. That was a highlight, and I went on detachment with PTS or Parachute Training School to South Africa.
A chilly and cloudy morning in the Port St Mary Lifeboat Station on the southeast coast of the Isle of Man. The station's full-time coxswain and mechanic Morgan Guy briefs the team ahead of today's joint exercise with the RAF.
We can all go and get into PPE, please. We don't need anyone in dry suit because we're alongside the wall, and we will use a ladder. I'm
joining the team on board their Trent-class all-weather lifeboat, so I'm also kitted out in full gear. That'll be close enough, won't it? Yeah.
They're small fitting anyway. So
yeah, fine, no problem. Thank you very much. What's the order for putting stuff on?
This one first?
Yep, no problem.
Thank you. Real good. Life jacket. On like a jumper. There.
A short walk takes us from the Port St Mary Lifeboat Station and down the metal stairs to the deck. Within minutes, we're underway, heading east and out into the Irish Sea for the joint exercise with a helicopter from 202 Squadron based at RAF Valley. The sea state isn't too bad at all for a mid-December morning, and soon the radio communications from the approaching helicopter begin.
Lifeboat, Whirlwind 213, Chelsea 7.
Whirlwind 213, this is Port St Mary Lifeboat, go ahead, over.
213, be with you in about 5 minutes. Is that you about 3 miles southwest of the Lifeboat Station?
213, yeah, Port St Mary Lifeboat, yes, that's correct, that is us, yeah, we're just here ready and waiting for you. Over.
Right, so we'll be with you in about 2 minutes or so.
213, Port St Mary Lifeboat, look forward to that, see you shortly.
Aboard the Port St Mary Lifeboat, the crew prepares for the approaching helicopter and its winch. For some, it's a chance to refresh skills they don't get to practice too often. For others, this will be their first experience of helicopter operations. Lifeboat navigator Brian Kelly explains the procedure.
It's just crossing our bow now. It'll go into an orbit round us, and then there'll be further comms as to how we proceed.
The first approach sees the Jupiter helicopter hovering above the deck of the lifeboat, whilst the crew aboard assess the boat and the weather conditions. So we're just on the back deck of the RNLI vessel now, watching the helicopter, which is at an angle of about 80 degrees to us. Its nose pointed directly south. We're steaming along in an easterly direction, and the helicopter is coming in closer and closer. I can see the crew working out their plan of action and moving closer, probably about 30-40 metres away from us now. It's got a bit of a squall on it, but it's not too bad at all. Chatting to the helicopter crew later on at Ronaldsway Airport, I spoke with the crew member sitting in the right-hand seat today, closest to the lifeboat.
Mark Scott, I'm a full-time reserve service Lieutenant Commander in the Royal Navy, working on 202 RAF Squadron at RAF Valley, which is part of the One Flying Training School where the headquarters is at RAF Shawbury, and I'm a Lieutenant Commander.
And you were right seat today, weren't you?
Today, the aircraft commander was John Owen, Flight Lieutenant John Owen. He took the left-hand seat and I stole the right-hand seat so that I could fly with the boat. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Mark, let's just take this back to basics. 202 Squadron, based at RAF Valley, but you're not actually RAF yourself, are you?
I'm not, but if you take it back even further, originally, back in World War One, the 2 Squadron was Royal Naval Air Service Squadron, and then the formation of the Royal Air Force in 1918, that's when they added 2s on the front, so it became 202 Squadron. We've got a fantastic propeller in the squadron, which has got the old 2 Squadron and 3 Squadron from the aircraft that flew back then, but now 202 Squadron, firmly RAF, but it's the maritime squadron in the 2 Maritime Air Wing, which is part of one flying training school, which is where we teach the Army, Navy and the Air Force and the Royal Marines helicopter flying, everything from learning to hover right through to advanced navigation and night vision goggle training, and then there's also the crewman training, which today's rear crew, Joe Gladstone, can probably elaborate a little bit more on that, but it's all about team ethos, working together as a crew, and when they come to us on 202 Squadron, we take their experience and we just add on to them a little bit of operational maritime flying.
So the exercise itself today involved coming over. Tell us a bit about the aircraft you come over with, and tell us a bit about, from your perspective, what you were hoping to achieve.
So part of our flying training is to remain current in the roles that we teach. One of the roles that we operate on is called boat transfers. Now, we normally train with the Smith Don, which is our contract boat that comes out of Holyhead. And we know that boat like the back of our hand. And so it's really good for us to be able to expand the envelope and work with other boats. An opportunity has recently arisen to work with the RNLI. And it started off earlier in the year where we worked with real RNLI, and we've been around Holyhead now, and we've operated with Malfra, Beaumaris, also Porthincline, Abersoch and Pwllheli, and we've yet to work with Holyhead, and we've also ticked off Triada Bay. So this training we do to expand our experience that we've got. The aircraft that we fly is an EC-145, affectionately called the Jupiter. It's a really good aircraft from the perspective of working together as a crew. It's really efficient. It's great aircraft trainer for the pilots. The crewmen in the back have to work slightly harder because it's a more confined area, but that means that they have to be a lot more efficient with the space that they've got to work. So when they move on to their frontline aircraft, they're best versed in the way that they conduct their drills. The EC-145, the Jupiter, twin engine, gas turbine helicopter, it can be flown single pilot. We choose to do it with twin pilot today, so maximum training benefit.
Once the helicopter crew are happy, the lifeboat sets a heading and speed, and the exercise moves on. So the helicopter is now probably 30 metres astern of the RNLI boat. The Isle of Man behind it in a grey, but not too cold day. The sea's got a bit of a swell on it, but it's not too bad. The helicopter is now making its final approach towards us, ready to winch. I was lucky enough to be on the Port St Mary lifeboat today, watching from the other end of the line, as it were. Yeah. The flying that we were watching you doing today looks complicated. It looks very intensive. Is it as intensive as it looks, or is it something that you grow into through training?
We teach by numbers. So we start off with the basics. We first of all start to teach the pilots and the crewmen overland, and they learn their drills there, and they learn the procedures for hovering using what we call as a backdrop technique. But the gorse bushes and the ground don't tend to move around too much. We then move out over the water and introduce the boat, and then we operate in various sea states. The sea state up to sea state 3 is less of an impact on us. The wind is the greatest impact for us in direction and strength and what we're looking for. And ironically, up to a certain point, the more wind is beneficial until it becomes too windy, and then that wind affects the sea state becomes too great, and then we have to go home. So it's a fine balance between the two. Today, though, perfect conditions out there. Medium wind, sea state 2-ish. The boat was doing, you were on there, so the first transfer that we were doing was probably between 5 and 10 knots, and then we did the fast transfer at the end, 25 knots, which was a good bit of fun. But to get to that stage, we go teach by numbers. So we have a set of checks to do at each point, and we break it down. There's a brief on how we're going to move in. You probably saw us at the beginning hovering for quite a bit of time just looking at the boat. And what the crewman's doing there is assessing the conditions. They're doing a recce of the boat. We identify all of the objects on there that could cause an issue. Looking at the winds, the direction, the downdraft, turbulence that we might get. Then we're working out headings that we can operate to, and also what height we can operate. Once we've agreed all of that, then the crewman will give us what we call a method brief, and they will talk through what we're going to do first before we fly it. So everybody understands what we're going to do, and then we move in over the boat. The first run we do, as you saw, we make an approach to the boat, we fly the complete profile but without a person on the wire. So we all assess the conditions, then we move back into that briefing position, have a quick debrief. Military are great at debriefing, working out what's going on, and then when we're all happy, we put the man or woman down on the wire, and then we'll make our approach to the boat.
When you first arrived off the coast of Port St Mary on the Isle of Man this morning, I heard the aircraft communicating with the boat. Who decides the direction, the speed? Who calls that shot, and how's that decided?
So we had a really experienced crew today, and they were already on that.
On board the helicopter?
So the really experienced crew on board the RNLI boat, and I know it's been a while since they've operated with a helicopter, but they were phenomenal today. They were really, really good, and they were already on the correct heading. Normally, the crew in the helicopter would probably fine-tune the boat and get the boat onto the heading so that we've got approximately a 30 or 40 degree wind offset from the boat so that we can hover and have a good reference and good visuals of the boat to brief. So it's normally a combination of the two. Today, though, it worked really well.
So ultimately, once you're lined up, you're looking at, from a pilot's perspective, flying at an angle of 30, 40 degrees off of street.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's presumably so that you can see the boat, you get a good view of the boat and everything else.
It's a combination of things. One is clear air, because we don't like is turbulence. So the wind is, the relative wind is off to the side. I've got a reasonably good view out of the starboard window. The cabin door is open. The crewman has got a good view of the boat as well, and they can brief accordingly. Also, there's no boat in front of me, so should I have an emergency that requires me to fly away, I've got instantly clear air to fly away, and I've got height to play with. So there's a whole combination there of convenience, visibility, and safety.
Meanwhile, back at 202 Squadron's base at RAF Valley, OC Squadron leader Simon Allen explained that the whole exercise came about following a visit to the Isle of Man by one of the RAF Valley team.
Yeah, that's right. It was with the gentleman that was the key point of contact for this, was Wing Commander Chris Pote. And he had interfaces with the government, Parliament and the airfield, as well as the RNLI and the Coast Guard. So that was the genesis of this.
And from a 202 perspective, 202 Squadron perspective, what does this bring to the table?
Oh, it's a tremendous piece, Chris. We're really pleased to be able to get involved with it. There's a couple of things that come from this. So we're looking at the RNLI's point of view and also my squadron. And for the squadron's point of view, it's a chance to grow the instructional cadre who were non-SAR background. So, for instance, a lot of our instructors now come from 7 Squadron. They're really good quality guys, but they won't have winched on many boats. So the more exposure I can give them to different boats and different vessels, the better. So having this opportunity with the RNLI in the Isle of Man comes on the back of other opportunities that we've taken around North Wales, around the Isle of Anglesey, on the Clyn Peninsula, working with stations such as Beaumaris, Triada Bay, And this gives us another boat to play with. The other side of this is the strategic impact that it gives to the RNLI at the Isle of Man. Now, the Isle of Man RNLI crews don't get the opportunity to train with helicopters very often, which you probably heard when you spoke to them and how much they enjoyed it. But what this does is it takes the pressure off them, gives them a learning environment where they can make mistakes, ask questions before they do this live. And when they do this live, you might have seen this on TV, and it dovetails into your piece quite nicely with Saving Lives at Sea, that's what it's all about. And that impact that 202 brings to training with the RNLI will assist with saving lives.
And the exercise itself came during December, the tail end of 2024, which was the 200th anniversary for the RNLI, with strong links through William Hillary to the island itself. So a nice little extra bit for the RAF for 202 Squadron there as well.
Yeah, it was really nice. We were so pleased to be involved. We've got members on the squadron that are heavily involved with the RNLI, Lieutenant Commander Scott. He's been doing a lot of charity swimming with them, so he's one of our linchpins, really, with a point of contact with the RNLI. But this is not going to be a one-off. We're hoping with the Chief Maritime Instructor from our friends at Ascent from the TSP that we're looking to do this again when the FTP allows us to do that. So hopefully in about 6 months, maybe a year's time, we can do another one with the RNLI and potentially the Coast Guard as well.
And certainly when Wing Commander Pope visited the island and was talking at Tynwald and chatting to the MHKs and the members there, one of the big things was obviously the Isle of Man public getting to see a return on their investment because it's contribution to the MOD and everything else. And it's just great to see that tie-up. And presumably it works from the RAF side as well.
Oh, it's just a great piece. I think it works for everybody, as you've seen. And hopefully you heard the enjoyment from the crews from the Isle of Man RNLI.
So, number one, Flying Training School, FTS. How does that fit into the training package overall, the tri-service training package?
So 1FTS is where 202 fits in. It's our chain of command. Although 202 Squadron is at RAF Valley as a lodger unit, its command comes from RAF Strawberry 1FTS. And the commandant at the minute has just changed over to Group Captain Mikey Jordan. Now, the school itself is split up into two wings. So there's 9 Reg and there's 2 Maritime Air Wing, which is where 202 comes underneath.
In terms of what 202 Squadron are hoping to achieve from the exercise, Flight Lieutenant Jonathan Owen, the flight commander aboard the helicopter, is clear about what he wants the crew to achieve.
It was a mix of a couple of things. So we wanted to do work with the RNLI to practice deck transfers, something we do ordinarily on Anglesey, but working with our own contract boat, and a little bit of engagement with the RNLI, and also practice some instrument flying as well. So it was lots of sort of parts, all to the same sortie, combining a whole lot of training.
When you first approached the boat, I was lucky enough to be on board the Port St Mary Lifeboat. When you first approached the boat, the communication started between you, the helicopter team, and the boat team. Who decides on the track and the speed that the boat should take for the best operation?
On that one, we have a sort of series or a number of tracks that we can use with the vessel. It's basically a combination of the boat crew and the aircraft crew to work out the best way of doing it to give the best opportunity for the winchman to make contact with the boat. So for today, I think we chose it was a roughly southerly track for the vessel. The wind was a little bit south-east. I've got to think about that now. And that made the aircraft feel comfortable. The boat motion through the sea was also very comfortable, so it was the best drop-off for the winchman.
And in terms of the winchman, in terms of safety and making sure the operation goes as planned, what are you looking for? You're obviously looking for as clear a deck as possible, but basically what I'm asking you is what difference does it make the direction and speed of the boat?
If we choose, say, a direction of the vessel whereby it's sort of maybe riding into a particularly large swell, you might get the boat pitch, roll, heave, or basically moving around a lot. So that for a winchman as they're approaching it is easy to, say, turn an ankle or sort of impact the side of the vessel, something along those lines. We try and sort of minimise the boat motion wherever we can. The other one is, it wasn't a factor today, but if it's a particularly strong wind, the aircraft prefers to hover into wind, and if the angle of the boat against the angle of the helicopter isn't quite right, the pilot can't see anything. So it's combining those two to try and make it, as I say, the best option, as it were.
So you were flying from the left seat, which meant you were operating the aircraft systems and stuff. How involved is that? Because obviously he's got his eyes on the boat. You're looking after everything else, presumably.
I am sort of sat there in certain respects in the capacity seat, so I am making sure the aircraft's performing correctly, that the engines are going well, that the fuel is okay for us to sort of do the rest of the sortie. I think we flew for about 2 hours 20, something like that, so we were starting to get down towards the lower edges of our fuel, so it was making sure that we could make it quite happily to back to Ronaldsway Airport. So I'm there sort of sat back, making sure that all is going to go well, or all is going well, while Mark and the rest of the team were doing the actual physical winching side of the house.
I talked a little bit with Mark, and I guess it's something that you can expand on. Maybe from day one of basic training, we're all taught that teamwork and team ethos and working together is the secret to the and everybody should flag up an issue if they think there's something wrong. This has got to just be the perfect example of that.
There is a lot of bat and ball between all the various members of the crew. So clearly Mark and Joe, who were the sort of the main communicators of all this, clearly Mark driving it and Joe acting as the winch operator, they're almost in constant contact. There is lots of chat on the aircraft intercom. Clearly Dave also has sort of lots to say in this, because it's his body that's going out on the wire and towards the sort of the vessel, and I'm mostly there keeping stum, unless there's a need to chip in at any point. But yeah, the intercom is relatively busy during all of this.
And nice to come over to the Isle of Man. 200 years of the RNLI. It was founded here by Sir William Hillary, so back on the Isle of Man. A nice little side line to that, I guess. Yeah,
it's a very nice sort of sideline in. So there's a little bit of that, and yeah, us trying to work with the RNLI as well to help them in their sort of helicopter familiarisation or familiarity or currency training.
Dave Brown was the man being repeatedly winched between the helicopter and lifeboats. All of the Port St Mary lifeboat crew rotated around, ensuring that all had the opportunity to experience each role. Each time he unclipped from the winch, he briefed the RNLI crew about what was needed.
If you guys are happy, I'll go back up to the helicopter. Yeah. I'll collect the high line. I'll come back down. We'll deploy the high line and we'll get it established. Right, yes. We can work through people just by transferring a set of strops to the aircraft and back down again. Yes, and then once everybody's happy, as a little bit of a consolidation, then I can go up and come down again, leaving you guys to tend the high line by yourself. Yeah, and then we've done it a little bit with me here, and then a little bit without me here, and then we'll probably all feel fairly confident then. Oh, that'd be perfect. Yeah? Sound. Happy days. Yeah. Nice one. I'll go get my high line.
Like most of the crew, RNLI volunteer Laura Cordner fits her saving lives at sea role around a busy day job.
I work for a bank, a high street bank, so I do high value business banking for my clients.
So this is a real change then?
Very much so, very much so.
What is it you enjoy about it?
I've always liked the sea, and just having these people here, we all support each other, they support me, and it's just such a good cause to come and volunteer. It's really good.
How long have you been doing it now?
This is my 6th year. It was my anniversary in October, so yeah.
To get alongside the helicopter today, is that the first time you've worked with air activity, or?
First with RAF, usually we work with the Coast Guard in their helicopter, so it's a bit of a different one this time.
And how did you find it?
I love it, just the opportunities to get to do these things and to really play a big part in it is just unbelievable every day.
So every day is different, and certainly as far as training goes, what does that bring to it to be able to do things like the helicopters?
Training is so important. Before we do this, we all watch helicopter training, which we all did last night just to refresh us, to remind us what we're going into. It's not every day that we get to go out with the helicopter, so it is important to keep that knowledge up.
Excellent stuff. And for you now, are you back to the office, or are you free for the rest of the day?
I work from home, so I'm going to go get some lunch and then log on and carry on with my day job.
And from your employer's point of view, how do they how does it work for them? Are they happy for you to sort of disappear at short notice if needed?
Not massively happy, but they do. They let me. They're absolutely fine. My big boss, the top guy, is volunteer police, so he understands the commitments that volunteering comes with. They're always so supportive, no matter what. And even my clients, I've had to put the phone down and say I've got to go, and they just understand.
And what about from a family point of view? What do your family think of it?
My mum was here this morning, and she does get worried about me. She, if it's a bit of a storm, she'll say, right, no going out today, but she also understands that when I've got to go, I've got to go. So it's just me and my mum here on the island. So
you had a big smile on your face, which is the one thing I noticed with all of the crew today. That must have been a good fun day then as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of smiling, even in the worst conditions. It's the camaraderie that just, really makes it. So, we see some tough things, we do some tough things, but as long as you can keep going and the good times happen, then, we can get through anything.
And Laura's RNLI colleague Rob Marshall is another who fits a full-time business around his volunteer commitment.
My main job is an electrical contractor.
And you've also got another business as well, so I'm guessing you're a busy man.
Yeah, I have two companies, electrical contractors and hoist hire access platforms. So yeah, slightly busy, especially this week with the storm damage which occurred at the weekend previously.
But to get out here and be amongst the rest of the crew, what's that like?
It's brilliant. It's what I love. I'm a Portsmouth man, born and bred down here, so I don't live here at the moment, but I'm originally from Portsmouth. I've been at sea most of my life. I used to do deep sea fishing. I just love it. And when I'm out on the boat here, I don't have my telephone, which is a massive release for me because it just never stops. So it's just great, and the crew are wonderful. It's just one big family, really. It's brilliant. Yeah, it's good.
And today, working with the helicopter, the RAF helicopter from Valley, how was that?
Yeah, fantastic. They were a great bunch of lads. It was a different type of helicopter, as you noticed. It all went really well. The crew performed really well. There was no disillusion there. It was all good. Everybody knew what to do, and the guys were really happy. And it was good. Excellent.
And in terms of the element of training that brings to a crew, what does that add to it, doing this stuff with the helicopters?
Quite a lot. I mean, obviously, some of these crew that are on board today have not ever experienced this. So, for them to do that was a massive thing for them as well. And obviously now in the future, if a real life scenario does come across, then they're aware of it. But it's great all round for us as well to recap, because like I said before, it's about 5 years since we last had a heli exercise. So yeah, really good, really good.
And now for you, back to the day job?
Yes, literally. Yeah, back to the day job till whatever time tonight, and working all weekend as well again, unfortunately. So
Sergeant Joe Gladstone was at the other end of the winch aboard the Jupiter helicopter.
So my role was the winch operator, so I was the effectively in charge of delivering the winchman safely to the deck. The main purpose of today was to enhance our sort of training benefits as a crew whilst working with the RNLI, to give them the benefit of working with an aircraft to enhance their skills, because they don't get many opportunities to work with rotary wing helicopters.
When we're looking at an aircraft in that sort of configuration doing the role that you were doing today, how important is the teamwork? How important is the communication?
The teamwork and the CRM, as we sort of encase it, is a massive part of all rotary wing operations, but working alongside a deck, it can be quite a dynamic environment. So having that good communication initially from the pilot to the winch operator is massively important, so we're all singing off the same song sheet. And then we've got the winchman on the deck as well, who has the Polycon radio, so he can hear what's going on. It's all linked together to make sure that everything's going as planned.
And conditions today were pretty good. It wasn't particularly rough or anything, was it? So from that training perspective, a good chance to give people a chance to try things out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the conditions today couldn't have been any better. We had a light wind day, so we had a little bit of rotor wash beneath the aircraft, but more than suitable for what we wanted to achieve. And it almost gave us the best conditions to enable the boat to head on any direction to get the most benefit of the training possible.
When it comes to that, I was listening on the boat. I was lucky enough to be on the Port St Mary lifeboat, listening to the comms as you approached. Who decides which direction and which speed the boat should head in for the best sort of comms and the best pickup?
So we sort of work as a crew with that. So the RNLI and ourselves at 202 Squadron have slightly different SOPs, but they can sort of mingle together to make the ideal sort of boat transfer. So we use a red 040 to transfer onto the deck, so we'll head into wind as the aircraft, and we'll maintain a relative hover to that boat, so we'll get it 40 degrees off our heading, and that gives us a nice running feature towards the deck itself to deliver the winchman and utilise the high line as you saw today.
When you first approach, what sort of conversations are going on amongst the crew on board the helicopter?
So when we first approach, the first thing we do is we get an idea of what's happening with the boat. So we get there and we conduct what's called an area recce. So we make sure that we're working with the correct boat, and we identify at that point any possible transfer areas and main obstructions in and around the boat that may affect us in our operations. We'll then go into more of a detailed recce, and this is where we pick out the finer details of what's in and around the deck to get everything from there, to make sure that we're operating in a safe configuration so that we're not going to impact the boat or affect the aircraft in any way. Usually what we do is we'll start on this 40-degree offset. It gives us a nice clear run in. The rear of the vessel is actually nice and clear today. It's made to be worked with helicopters, and we know that it's a nice safe way in. The winchman is not going to impact on any side of the vessel as it goes into that nice clear area. So we always usually start with that red 40 configuration.
It was an RNLI boat today, and that made it a bit easier, I guess, because you knew what to expect on the boat itself. Sometimes not always the case if you're winching off of a fishing vessel, I'm guessing, with masts and netting and antennae and everything else. It can be a bit more complicated.
Yeah, exactly that, yeah. So usually back at RAF Valley we operate with the Smith Don boat from Holyhead Harbour, which is a dedicated training vessel that we have. And we all become quite familiar with the Smith Don, and it's a nice clear vessel. So working with the RNLI was quite beneficial, mainly just being able to detail recce, have a look at a different vessel in that aspect. But yeah, you're right, if we were to use a fishing boat or any other type of vessel that's potentially got a lot of hazards on the deck, it's something we have to be aware of. So the stuff we train at RAF Valley is the basics of working with this nice clean vessel that we have, but it just shows that you can use it in any different scenario to get the most out of it.
And for you, I mean, you got a great job. You were there, and the conditions were nice enough today. It's a great office view, isn't it? It's a great place to be working. Absolutely, yeah. There's definitely worse offices you can have. So sitting in the side of a helicopter, standing winching to an RNLI boat is definitely one of the highlights, especially on such a nice day, as you've said, with the conditions that we had. And for you, what's the best part of the job? What is it that sort of, when you go home after a heavy, long day and you go, actually, that's all been worthwhile? What is it? So I think from my perspective, working at 202 Squadron at RAF Valley, the best part of the job is when you get trainees that are coming through and they initially might find it a little bit difficult. It's something different to what they've done at RAF Shawbury on their basic rotary wing course. And we're teaching them these new skills, and you can see it sort of clicking as the course goes on. And then if they have been struggling one day, it just sort of all clicks and falls into place, and it's always a nice satisfying feeling when you see that happening. And being based at Valley, how long have you been there? How long are you likely to be there now? So I've been at RAF Valley since last April, so April 2023, and I'm due to be there until October 2026. What's on the wish list for you next? To remain at RAF Valley. Is it one of those places, because Lossiemouth's Mouth's another place that people go, oh, I don't want to Lossie, and then once they arrive there, they never want to leave? Yeah, without putting any secrets out there, I think RAF Valley is a bit of a hidden gem. People are reluctant to go there at first, but then when they get there, they tend to love it. So yeah, I'd like to stay there, and I enjoy the job that I do. I enjoy the flying, I enjoy the instruction side of it. So yeah, I'd like to stay there for as long as I can. From an instructor's point of view, when you get somebody, you talked a moment ago about somebody having a bad day and then it comes good, how rewarding is that for you as an instructor when you get somebody who is maybe struggling a bit with the course and you find a way, it's finding a key to that person's training ability, isn't it, I guess? How does that work for you? Yeah, I think you've sort of just hit the nail on the head there. Everyone's got a different style of learning. People learn in different ways, and it's finding that correct way to teach that person. Some people like to be told exactly what to do and how to do it. Other people like to learn by making little slight mistakes, and we sort of have to find the right avenue to go down to teach people the best way and to get the most from that trainee is what we want to achieve at the end of the day. And working here today with the RNLI, with the Port St Mary Lifeboat, it's the 200th anniversary of the RNLI as well. It started here on the Isle of Man with Sir William Hillary and stuff, so a nice little circular thing there for the anniversary. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, it's almost fitting that we get to work with the RNLI. It's not an opportunity we get all the time, so yeah, really beneficial, and hopefully the crew today on the aircraft have gained a bit of benefit from it, and hopefully as well the RNLI boat crew have honed in their skills a little bit, stuff they don't get an opportunity to do a massive amount, and I think it is beneficial for everyone involved. Meanwhile, the operations between the 202 Squadron Jupiter helicopter and the Port St Mary Lifeboat were continuing, with Dave Brown completing his final few winches and RNLI crew changeovers.
Okay? Okay. Just keep what you're doing. Keep on
The advantages of joint operations between the RAF and other agencies just can't be underestimated, according to pilot Lieutenant Commander Mark Scott.
You can't buy this for benefit of training. It's concurrent training for us anyway. It's not been put on specially. It takes an awful lot of effort to organise, and actually the planning side of it is as valuable as the flying, because we've got a low flying booking system to go through, and then we've got the booking to get out of Anglesey into the Isle of Man, booking with the airport, booking with the RNLI. So there's lots and lots of unintended consequences of the event. Once we get to the boat, we're so used to working with our own boat and our own crew, we really have to then break it down by numbers, because, we know the boat, and you could do it with your eyes closed almost. When you come to a new boat, especially the Trent that we were working with today, that's the first time I've seen a Trent from the air, and so the crewman giving a full brief, your eyes are following around when he's talking about objects on the deck and obstructions and furniture on the boat that's going to snag. So the value is unquantifiable, really, to come to a boat like that.
We hear from day one of basic training, people are taught about team efforts and working together and everybody's opinion counting. This has got to be sort of one of the ultimate demonstrations of that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Crew resource management is what we call it, CRM, and the ability for people to be able to talk, speak up, and if they see something going wrong, we talk about cockpit gradient, which is the ability for anybody, any member of the crew, if they see something going wrong, to be able to speak up and put it in a way that gets people's attention. Most of the time it goes according to plan, and today there was a good example of that. You saw the high lines that we were using, lowering down the ropes. That was simulating a yacht with a higher mast that we can't get in, and that then expands that team coordination beyond the aircraft to us working with the boat. And there's no point playing tug of war with a helicopter, you're never going to win. So it's all about working together, and that teamwork that you just mentioned there, for us today, John in the left hand seat as the aircraft commander, he's monitoring, and you will have noticed that we broke off in the middle and repositioned the boat. Now the reason for that is we were doing a fuel plot, and part way through the sortie we worked out we literally had 2 minutes of fuel left before the airfield opened for us to come back here. So a way for us to extend our time in the air was to move away from the operating environment of hovering next to the boat, because it's quite fuel heavy, it's quite thirsty using the fuel in the hover there. But then when we fly away and we go to min power, we then flew around for 15 minutes and, in inverted commas, made 15 minutes of fuel by burning less fuel. So that allowed us to extend it. So John's doing his job there, probably the hardest job of managing the aircraft, getting ready for us to come back in. The guys in the back are doing the safety side of it, and I'm just doing my best to hover next to the boat and keep the height right for them.
You're making it sound very easy. The aircraft needs refuelling. How much does it take out of you as a pilot when you're holding that hover, holding that position, and at the end of the day somebody's at the end of the line sort of making contact with the boat?
Yeah, so I think physically it doesn't take a huge amount out of you, except that you're not moving very much. So you do get cramp in your legs and your arms, and you've got the ability to hand over control. The flexibility of the helicopter, you're constantly trying to work out in your mind, whether you've got enough time to do what you're doing. We work on the premise that the priority in a training environment is the safety of the person on the wire. So we're looking after them all the time. So I'm getting a constant feed of information of where the crewman is, whether he's outside of the aircraft on the skid, whether he's going down the wire towards the aircraft, whether he's at the correct height, and when we're moving in. The next safety is the safety of the aircraft, and if we were working for a survivor in the water, then they're the next safety, because they've kind of already had a bad day. We need to look after the crewmen, otherwise we can't pick them up. We need to look after the aircraft, otherwise we can't get home, and then on top of that we'll look after the survivor. So that, as we talked about earlier, the teamwork is really important, but we've also got a strict line of safety that we're continually assessing throughout the whole sortie.
But all in all, a great day in the office today.
Yeah, I wouldn't change today's office for anything. No, it's fantastic to come back and do this, and the opportunity to work again with the RNLI in their 200th anniversary. You know, they're out there in all sorts of weather, and you know, I take my hat off to what the boys and girls of the RNLI, and I've had the privilege this year of working with the RNLI around the UK in their 200th anniversary. A big shout out to the crews that are on shore that support the boat, the crews that get the boats out, the ops crews, you know, the support
engineers,
staff,
mechanics,
the engineers, mechanics, and the support staff in the shops. It's a real privilege for us just to be able to come and work with the RNLI.
And a nice touch as well, because here we are, Port St Mary on the south coast of the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man 200 years ago, so William Hillary founded the RNLI. So a really circular story. And for you personally, you said you had some involvement within our RNLI this year, but you also were involved with the charity side of things, weren't you?
Yeah, very much. This year has been, as an open water sea swimmer, it's been a real privilege to be able to swim from RNLI station to station around the UK in 200 days. Went as far as we could. We managed to do 70 RNLI stations around the UK, from Dover to Portsmouth and Berwick-upon-Tweed down to Blyth, and all the ones around Wales, because they were easy.
What was the furthest swim you had open water for those?
The furthest open water swim was day one, which was from Dover all the way past Folkestone towards Dungeness, and that was 6.5 hour swim and 31 kilometres.
That's ongoing. How did you find that?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it was day one and I was fit and I wasn't tired, and I day two and day three I regretted it. I wish I'd swam a bit less, but yeah, that was I bring it back to the fact that, you know, they're called to go out in any weather, you know, any time, and so it was just nice for me to be able to put a bit back for them. But you're right, the RNLI are an interesting organisation, because when you go around the UK and you meet the people, they are so friendly and so helpful. Almost every RNLI station has either the first of something or the oldest boat here, or it was the first station to be operational at this point, or the first station to have a engine-powered boat. You know, so they've all got their own history, and that's the thing about the RNLI. It's very similar to, you know, the military. They've got their traditions, and they fit well with the way and the ethos that they've got in their training. So I'll bring it back to the full beginning. You know, this is just such an opportunity for us to do concurrent training with the RNLI.
Just refueled the aircraft now here at Ronaldsway and about to depart. What's the rest of the afternoon got for you?
The rest of the afternoon for us is some more instrument flying training. We're going to depart here and go back to Valley, do a couple of instrument approaches, and then the afternoon has some paperwork for me. It's all glorious. There is no escape from paperwork.
So it's payback time, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you've got to do a certain amount of paperwork for time in the air.
I'm AS1 Emma Kerwin, and this is Reheat, where we take a look back at some of the RAF stories you might have missed. Recently, a Poseidon from RAF Lossiemath tracked a Russian landing ship through the English Channel. The Poseidon has an array of sensors and can be airborne for long periods of time to provide surveillance over large maritime areas. The RAF provides this service around the clock. If you follow the RAF on social media, you'll see exercise Red Flag is coming soon. It's one of a series of advanced aerial combat exercises hosted by the United States Air Force. It provides the RAF with an opportunity to reaffirm its close ties with the US and the Royal Australian Air Force. The RAF presence includes Typhoon and Voyager aircraft. Keep your eyes peeled for more on this exercise. A large collection of memorabilia commemorating the man who led the famous Dam Busters raid has been sold at auction. 54 lots had expected to go for about £10,000, but they fetched more than twice the expected price. The items had been on display at the RAF Scampton Heritage Centre in Lincolnshire. Next, the Defence Fire Training Instructor's been talking about how pushing limits fuels greatness both in sports and uniform. Corporal Brad Axe says it's important for firefighters to have discipline and focus, and one way is keeping fit. Head to the official Royal Air Force Facebook page for a video with Corporal Axe on this. And nominations for the RAF Benevolent Fund's annual awards are now open. There are 5 categories, including Fundraiser of the Year and RAF Station of the Year. That was Reheat for Inside Air.
Thanks, Emma. And now it's time to find out who's under the hat with Ben.
I'm AS1 Ben Russell, and this is Under the Hat, where we get to know an aviator in less than a minute. Name you're known by.
I'm Flight Sergeant Steve Forster, they call me Fozzie Forster.
What's your profession?
I'm a Royal Air Force physical training instructor, but my specialisation, I'm a parachute jumping instructor at Airborne Delivery Wing.
What's the best thing about your job?
Jumping out of planes. I enjoy it, it's fun, and coaching people and helping soldiers, for their capabilities.
Hardest part of your job?
Probably the training, getting to a level where you can stay with anybody no matter what size and weight.
Best location you've served?
I went on RAF football tour to Bangkok. That was a highlight, and I went on detachment with PTS or Parachute Training School to South Africa.
What bit of luxury kit do you never deploy without?
My iPhone.
And what's your proudest moment in the RAF?
Proudest moment, I got PGI of the Year back in 2004, so that was a good award. I also got British Parachute Instructor of the Year.
Thank you, Flight Sergeant Forster, for being the latest aviator to take part in Under the Hat.
That's all for this episode of Inside Air. Please give us a review, subscribe via your favourite podcast app, and join us again soon.
You've been listening to Inside Air, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations. If you're serving in the RAF and have a story for us, please speak to your unit media and communications officer. Inside Air is written and produced for the Royal Air Force by RAF Media Reserves.